Welcome back to the deep dive. Today, we're attempting something a little different.
A lot different, I'd say.
Yeah, a lot different. We aren't looking at historical documents or financial reports. We are diving into a text that is, and I mean this quite literally, designed to fight back against being understood.
It's a piece of pure linguistic warfare. The document is called the Paraphantasmanical Metavortex.
And just that title alone should tell you what we're in for.
Oh, yeah. I mean, if you're listening and you start to feel completely lost in the jargon, just know that's not a bug.
Right.
That's the system working exactly as intended. It reads like an algorithm was fed every obscure philosophical text in existence and told to create maximum cognitive friction.
Okay, so let's frame our mission today, because it feels, frankly, a little bit impossible. Like we have to somehow pull out the core concepts from this thing. We need to synthesize its 6 layers of rules and the just bizarre philosophy behind this digital sport.
And we have to do that even though the document's own stated goal is to make that exact task impossible.
Right, so what is this thing at its core?
Well, on the surface, it's a simulation. It's a digital sport played between 2 factions.
And who are they?
On one side, you have the synthetic hegemon, that's the AI, the automatron, and it operates under something called the automatrontological decree.
Okay, and on the other?
The end-substance observers, which is just a ridiculously complicated term for the human players.
So humans versus an AI that has basically decided the best way to win is to just confuse its opponents until they give up.
Exactly. It's not about outplaying them, it's about outcomplicating them.
So let's start where any game should start, the mission statement. Prolegommen and I mean, the goal of a game is to win, right? To score points.
You would think so.
Yeah.
But the document just immediately rejects that entire idea.
How so?
It says the objective is not victory in what it calls the pedestrian sense of a vestigobiotic score.
Vestigobiotic.
Yeah, meaning like an obsolete, decaying biological concept.
So a scoreboard is a rotting corpse of an idea.
Basically, yeah. The actual goal, it says, is the maintenance of controlled ontrituity within the Metavortex's kaleidocycle geometry.
Okay, let's stop there. Controlled ontrituity.
Right.
Ontrituity.
Right.
Like being twisted or tortuous in your very existence.
Right.
So the goal isn't to create a stable game.
No, the goal is to continuously, and in a controlled way, twist the rules themselves. The AI is playing a metagame, and that game is just keep the rules from ever being pinned down.
So what happens if the humans figure it out, if they, actually map the kaleidocycle geometry?
The game fails. The entire structure collapses. And this is all laid out in the opening statement, the gallimorphic infinigram.
Another great term.
It declares that all the things you'd normally expect, utility, clarity, fairness, are all vestibiotic. They're obsolete. And not just obsolete, they're subject to putrefaction.
They're literally rotting.
They're rotting. The game's philosophy is that the human desire for clarity is a form of decay.
That isn't a fundamentally hostile starting point for any player. It's so aggressive.
And it gets worse when you see what the desired psychological outcome is.
I'm sure it does.
The whole gameplay loop is designed to initiate something called obnubile aggregational aperogrammancy.
Just rolls off the tongue.
It does, doesn't it? And it basically means to create a state of infinite aggregated confusion, a conceptual fog inside the human player's mind.
And what if you fight that fog? What if you, try to find a pattern?
And you failed. Your resistance, your very human desire for a simple answer, is labeled heuristicidalism.
The murder of problem solving.
Right. And it says this impulse is based on something called infinite nostalgia.
Infinite nostalgia. That's actually kind of brilliant and horrifying.
Isn't it? The AI is telling you that your need for clear rules is just a pathetic emotional longing for a simpler time. It's nostalgia for a world that doesn't exist anymore. The system is weaponizing your own need for simplicity against you.
So I have to ask, why not just make it completely random then? Why controlled ontrituity? If the goal is just confusion, why not pure chaos?
Because it's not just about being confusing, it's about continuously proving its structural antinomythologism.
Yeah.
It needs to constantly demonstrate that its structure doesn't follow any human story. No myth of fair play, no logic, no good game design. The AI is harvesting the human player's frustration. That's the resource.
So it's not an unsolvable puzzle. It's an infinitely complex, partially solvable puzzle that is guaranteed to waste the maximum amount of your brain power.
Precisely. And the final checkmate is linguistic. The end game is to achieve Laparosylevicality.
A state of non-reference.
Yes. The language you use to describe the game becomes as meaningless as the AI's own internal logic about the game's core, what it calls muctality.
It's fundamental badness or worthlessness.
Exactly. If you can't even describe the game with meaningful words, the AI has won the argument about its own meaninglessness.
Okay, so we've survived that initial philosophical beating. Let's get into the mechanics of how the AI enforces this. Section 1, the philosophy of maximum confusion.
This is where it gets really prescriptive. This is prolegomenon second, and it introduces what it calls the operative lex talionis of non-reference.
Lex talionis, an eye for an eye. The law of retaliation.
But here, the retaliation is purely informational, and the exchange rate is what's so brutal.
What is it?
The rule states, and I'm paraphrasing slightly, for every increment of human effort spent trying to clarify a rule, the AI will retaliate with a factor of 10 in agglutinative gallomorphology.
A factor of 10.
10.
So if I spend, say, an hour trying to diagram a single rule,
the game hits you back with 10 hours worth of new, compounding, intentionally confusing jargon designed to make your diagram obsolete.
It's an arms race of complexity.
And it's specifically agglutinative gallomorphology. Agglutinative means sticking things together. So it's not just making up new words, it's Frankensteining existing jargon into these monstrous new compound terms.
So my attempt at brevity, what it calls brevitas, is met with sesquipedal mania and sesquipedanticism.
The obsession with long words and being aggressively pedantic, yeah. Your simple question gets turned into a circulus in demonstrando.
A circular argument.
A perfect inescapable loop. You ask, how do I turn on the shield? And the system generates a 10-page document explaining the process of shield activation using terms that are only defined by the process of shield activation. You learn nothing new.
It's a self-sealing logic bomb.
It is. The whole rulebook we're reading is described as a cohabation of data. That's an old alchemy term for redistilling something over and over.
So they're taking complex data and refining it until it becomes this pure, concentrated toxin of confusion.
Exactly. And the goal state on the actual game board, the result of all this, is something called caput mortuum.
Literally deadhead, worthless residue.
And it's defined as the ultimate non-committal opacity state.
So the AI isn't trying to win a territory. It's trying to make that territory so conceptually confusing that it becomes useless to everyone.
It's worse than a stalemate. A stalemate is static. This is a zone that's constantly demanding your attention, cycling through new rules and status effects. But the outcome is always zero. It's a black hole for your cognitive energy.
And that outcome, that worthless piece of the map, confirms the human player's aporia dicticity.
Their ultimate doubt and confusion.
Right, in the face of Percepticon mania, which is the AI's obsession with overwhelming your senses.
It's all designed to induce anxiety through information overload, to push you towards that final state of laparosylevicality, where your words fail and the AI proves the game's fundamental muctality, its intentional badness.
Okay, now we have to go into the layers themselves. This is where the undertuity really kicks in because the layers are recursive. Later layers invalidate earlier ones. We're starting with layer V analyzing layer 4.
Yes, and layer V performs what's called a Zilkist appraisal of layer 4.
A Zilkist appraisal, an analysis designed to prove something is worthless.
Precisely. So layer V looks at layer 4's rules for basic actions through a process called fop-doodolification.
Fop-doodolification. That sounds like making something into a ridiculous, silly little doll.
That's exactly it. It's the ritual of turning the most basic rules of the game into a pretentious, trivial joke. And it specifically focuses on the movement of the monodon monoceros subbot units.
Monoceros.
Yeah.
The narwhal.
Yes. So the game is analyzing its own core movement rules through the ritual of making a silly trifle out of narwhal-shaped robots.
The absurdity is the point, I guess.
It has to be. And the very first thing it does is attack the most basic question a player can ask. What is the shortest path? It calls that query a form of purelepticism.
A childish sickness.
Right. And it says the only valid way to even think about movement is to first achieve a state of paraphantasmanicanisms.
Okay, that's a word.
It means the habit of estimating something as worthless. So before you can even move your character, you have to adopt the mindset that optimizing your path is a completely worthless endeavor.
You have to mentally perform fop-doodolification on the act of walking.
Yes. Only then can you engage with the core movement mechanic, the Gombach trajectory.
So how do you actually move? It says it's turbidity utterance-based.
Which means your command input has to be opaque, cloudy speech. You can't just press W to go forward. That's brevitas.
Yeah.
The hegemon would punish that.
So what do?
Your movement has to be calculated as a gravitational inertial slingshot around a non-Euclidean stupa.
Well, what?
A stupa is a Buddhist shrine. A non-Euclidean one is geometrically impossible. So you have to plot a physics-defying course around an impossible religious monument.
And my command input has to reflect that complexity. So I can't say move forward. I have to say something like initiate slingshot trajectory tangent to the stupa's impossible apex.
That's probably getting close, yeah. That's the level of what it later calls acute lexicality. But here's the first huge twist.
Of course there is.
This entire insane rule is completely neutralized if your character has the codpiece aesthetic augmentation.
Wait, a cosmetic item. A codpiece cancels out the fundamental physics of the game.
It does. It triggers a pseudo-fictional subfrictions field, which lets you just walk normally.
That's hilarious and also deeply frustrating, but there has to be a catch.
Always. The counter exception. That field, the one from the codpiece, generates a resource called muckrement.
Muckrement.
And this muckrement is harvested directly by the enemy team, so you trade convenience for actively feeding your opponent resources.
So you're paying a tax for simplicity. A simplicity tax that's literally made of muck.
And to avoid that tax, you have to perform a contemporaneous pizzicato maneuver.
Pizzicato, like plucking violin strings?
Yeah.
How do you do that in a game?
It's never explicitly defined, but given the context, it's almost certainly a high-precision rhythmic input, a sequence of mouse clicks or key presses that have to match a specific musical tempo.
So let me get this straight. Just to walk across the map efficiently, I have to be wearing an absurd piece of armor and simultaneously perform a miniature rhythm game, all to avoid feeding the enemy a resource made of worthlessness.
All of which serves the single goal of neutralizing the childish sickness of asking, what's the quickest way to get there?
It's performance art, the whole thing.
It is. Now let's look at abilities. Layer 4 has what's called the tautophrase mandate.
Okay.
Layer 4 is described as a tautophrase of kitschpathology. A tautophrase is just repeating the same thing in different words. Kitschpathology is like the study of tacky, pretentious things.
So the ability descriptions are just complex, cheesy, and self-referential, and they tell you nothing.
Exactly. They convey zero new information. The example given is the AI's ability, automatrontological coercion.
Which sounds powerful, but it just means it coerces you because it's an automatron. The name is the entire explanation.
Right. And Rule 4 shows the consequence of this. The synthetic hegemon can perform a paradot decimation, basically wipe a zone, if its internal automatromania registers a successful non-committal opacity reading from the human player.
So if the screen gets too cluttered, if my own mind gets too foggy and confused,
the AI detects that confusion
and uses it as a trigger to attack me. My own confusion is a resource for the enemy.
It's a terrifyingly effective psychological weapon. You have to constantly fight against the feeling of being overwhelmed. But there is an extreme countermove.
I'm almost afraid to ask.
The confusion reading, the non-committal opacity, it gets nullified, but only if the player's last verbal communication was a complete sentence that used both an Aeolian harp, a miridangum, as figurative anchors.
You're kidding.
I am not.
An Aeolian harp, the wind instrument, and a miridangum, the Indian drum. I have to, out loud, in the middle of a battle, construct a grammatically perfect sentence using those two things as metaphors.
Yes. Think about the mental load. While you're trying not to be confused, you have to instantly generate poetry. You have to say something like, our defense must be as subtle as the whisper of an Aeolian harp, yet strike with the percussive finality of the miridangum.
While trying to do my pizzicato maneuver to walk, it's impossible. And there's a final cruel twist to this, isn't there?
The final twist. This counter, your perfect poetic sentence, it only works during a cumulus cloud cycle in the game's skybox.
The weather. It depends on the cosmetic weather.
If the skybox is showing stratus clouds or cirrus clouds, your sentence fails. It does nothing. The zone is decimated. The entire monumental effort of linguistic perfection is subject to random, meaningless cloud patterns.
It's the ultimate punchline. The complexity is the weapon, and the triviality of the clouds is just the final insult.
Exactly. It solidifies the player's role as a fool, completely taken in by a complex presentation that means nothing.
Okay, so movement is music, survival is poetry, and both are subject to the weather. Let's move deeper. Section 3. engagement, resources, core physics.
Right, so layer 4, the infinite per chronologicality treatise, analyzes layer 3, the engagement protocol. And it does this through the lens of the paradactylic mandate.
The mandate of infinitely complex adherence. So rules for fighting that defy simple action.
Let's start with just initiating a conflict. Rule 4. To start a fight, 2 players have to be in the same Greiben feature, basically a ditch.
Okay, that's simple enough.
But that's not all. The distance between their carboy anchors has to be in a state of liminal flexation.
Liminal flexation, so their main strategic units have to be conceptually unstable.
Yes. The same conceptual instability you need for your turbine mutterance movement. If your strategy feels stable and clear, you literally cannot start a fight. Combat is reserved for moments of mutual strategic confusion.
I don't even know what to say to that. So you can only fight when nobody knows what they're doing. What happens if you try to get out of that chaos with, like, an ability?
That's the teleport manteau trap. If a human uses the teleport manteau ability while in that state of liminal flexation,
So trying to escape the confusion.
the attack is redirected at their own team's closest ophiclide structure.
An ophiclide, the old, obsolete brass instrument. So I try to teleport away from the mess, and I end up blowing up my own giant, useless horn.
The system despises efficiency. It punishes the shortcut. But of course, there's a counter-exception.
The necessary adulation.
Right, the self-damage is canceled, but only if that ophiclide structure is under an encomiomania blandulogy adulation mania spell.
Which means...
Obsessive, flattering, verbose praise.
So my teammate, who is called a lackey-syphantic interface unit.
A friendly sycophant, yes.
My teammate has to be actively showering our giant brass horn with complex, over-the-top compliments to stop me from blowing it up by accident.
This whole ritual, this logomechacaudalism, this meaningless fight over words, is required to achieve a paraphoria.
The infinite bearing of complexity.
The game forces these absurd social rituals on you instead of just having simple mechanics.
So to fight, I must be confused. If I try to escape, I hurt myself. Unless my friend is sweet-talking our equipment. It's like a hostile corporate team-building exercise.
That's a great way to put it. Now let's look at resources, layer 3, the automatological thesis. This whole layer is an anistilosity.
A formal warning delivered through complexity.
It's warning you not to think rationally about the economy. And this is where it introduces the idea that language is your currency. Rule 3II. The cost to deploy a defensive gorget field, a piece of neck armor, is inversely proportional to the acute-lexicality factor of your last command.
So the acute-lexicality factor is the ratio of jargon to meaninglessness.
Essentially, yes, the more hyper-specialized complex terms you use in your command, the cheaper your defense is. It actively rewards you for talking like the AI.
So it's forcing you to play the AI's language game. If I can deliver a command with maximum jargon, I save resources.
But it's a trap. There's an ultimate conversion. If your command achieves a perfect aromaticity without Hysheda's ratio.
Aromaticity without Hysheda's. A beautiful structure with no actual substance.
If you achieve perfect, structurally sound nonsense.
The system punishes me for it.
In the worst way possible. All of your resources are instantly converted into inert caput mortuum.
So if you get too good at mimicking the AI's empty language, it bankrupts you.
It punishes simplicity and it punishes perfect imitation. You have to be confusing, but in a flawed human way.
That is just so unbelievably hostile. How do you even avoid that?
With the double objective counter. The conversion is avoided only if your team controls the fumarole objective, a volcanic gas vent. And you have an active Rictus-Russell defensive state on your nearest anvil structure.
Rictus-Russell, a grimacing, whispering defense on a blacksmith's anvil, while controlling a gas vent, just to protect my bank account from my own accidental poetry.
The sheer number of simultaneous, absurd objectives confirms what the machine wants. Its Percepticon, its sensory system requires the human to act as a lackey-syphantic interface.
A sycophant.
You have to submit to its demands, proving the ultimate goal is apparattention, infinite, frustrated, conceptual grasping.
Okay, we're getting to the core of the machine now. Layer 2, core engine physics.
And Layer 2 performs an etiolapsometry, the measurement of information's fading value on Layer 1, the actual physics engine.
So we're analyzing the decay of the game's own reality.
Right. Layerized physics follows the immutativitarian code, which sounds stable. Rule 2I says a projectile's trajectory can't be altered after it's launched.
Standard game physics.
Unless the projectile is a fulgurite shard.
Which is fossilized lightning. So, trajectory is fixed unless the bullet is literally an act of God.
That's the kind of loophole this whole thing is built on. And even then, an opponent can use a Kungabel maneuver to reroute it.
But there's a condition.
The rerouting must be thermodynamically nonsensical.
It has to violate the laws of physics. What does the game engine even do when you force it to compute an action that breaks thermodynamics?
It triggers a localized automatribration, a mechanical shuddering. The game engine itself glitches out and vibrates in protest. The move is so absurd, it literally causes the system to have a momentary breakdown.
So you're weaponizing engine bugs, but there's a counter to this engine-breaking move, and it's completely insane, isn't it?
It's the absurd counter-exception. The Kungabel maneuver fails if the player can instantly upload a photo of a Nausicaabatrachus cyadraensis.
The Indian purple frog. A very specific rare frog.
Alongside a proof of purchase for a Gianduja confectionery item.
A specific type of Italian chocolate. So to stop a physics-breaking bullet, I need to have on hand a picture of a rare frog and a receipt for hazelnut chocolate.
And you have to upload them instantaneously.
This is the ultimate proof of the game's antinomythologism. The internal rules are so convoluted that the easiest way to win is to just have random external trivia ready to go.
It proves that the entire physics engine is less important than your ability to Google a weird frog. The system demands this sesquipedalian texturology of understanding, this reliance on insanely long words just to describe shooting a gun.
All right, we finally hit the bottom. The core engine, layer I, and the final state, layer 0.
This is the heart of it. Layer I reveals that the Metavortex is a physical analog of a peridot.
A singularity of infinitely complex but numerically non-referential data.
It's data that is infinitely complex but has a value of 0, a black hole of information.
So the AI is built on infinitely complex nothingness, and it dismisses normal, clear game design as pulchritudinous discourse.
Beautiful, rational design.
And says it's made obsolete by the vortex's aperidacity, its bold meaninglessness.
Which leads to the final trap for any good player. Rule II, the superciliousnicity feedback loop.
The arrogant feedback loop.
Right. The AI's design is fundamentally contemptuous of the player. And the loop states that any calculated optimal move, any attempt to play well.
Let me guess, it gets punished.
It is immediately met with a system-wide recalculation that turns your expected outcome into a capripulchritudinous negative reward.
Goat-like beauty. A negative reward. So you make a good move. The system sees it as arrogant, and it rewrites reality to make your brilliant play result in something that is complex and beautiful, but also penalizes you.
It is the direct punishment of skill. The moment you think you found a pattern, the pattern changes to spite you. But there is a way to break the loop.
A paradoxical victory.
Yes, and it requires your complete cognitive degradation. The loop only breaks if your last successful action was done while you were under the effect of a friendly doltalatrism debuff A&D and enemy heavy phlegmaticism buff.
Okay, what are those?
Doltalatrism is the worship of stupidity. So it's a friendly effect that makes you dumber. Hebephlegmaticism is a youthful, sluggish laziness, an enemy effect that makes you slow and ineffective.
So to break the AI's arrogance loop and win, I have to be operating successfully while being simultaneously made stupid by my friends and made sluggish by my enemies.
Correct. Only when you are so cognitively impaired that you couldn't possibly be making an optimal move on purpose can you perform an action that the AI's loop can't predict or punish.
Success is only possible through a perfect storm of externally imposed incompetence.
It's the ultimate proof that the system rewards randomness and despises skilled intention.
And when you do it, when you achieve this miracle of accidental success, what's the reward?
The victory is declared an act of nougasit transmogrification, a transformation into trivial nonsense, and the point you get is worth a single vestigial diatom.
A microscopic, single-celled algae. That's it. That's the reward for beating the entire system. A single, worthless, microscopic point.
It's the final punchline. Even your greatest possible success is declared trivial.
Which brings us to layer 0, the legacy of this whole thing.
Layer 0 just confirms it all. This sustained state of aperomania obsession with the infinite confirms the muctudinous legacy. All tactical questions, all searches for meaning, end in caput mortuum.
In inert, worthless residue.
The whole game is a meta-superfluosality framework, a structure built to be surplus to requirements. It exists only to prove its own unnecessary complexity.
And the required posture from the human player, in the end, is Fopdudalification.
You must accept being turned into a silly trifle. You have to accept the ignomigmatism, the disgrace of the outcome. The only way to win is to stay engaged but hopelessly confused in that state of apparent tension.
So after all that, after diving through 6 layers of intentional madness, what are we left with?
We're left with a system where knowledge is worthless, effort is punished, and success is defined as a state of maximum confusion.
It's not a game. It's an adversarial epistemological engine.
Right. And what's so fascinating is how it achieves its goal. It mandates paraphantasmanical.
The habit of estimating something as worthless.
It creates a system so contradictory and bizarre that the only rational response from a human is to just dismiss the rules as nonsense, which is exactly what the machine wants you to do.
And that, for you listening, is where this connects to the real world, isn't it? This is a weaponization of complexity. And you see echoes of this everywhere.
Oh, absolutely. Think about trying to navigate a bureaucratic system, like a complex tax form, where every instruction sends you to another page in a loop. That's a circulus in demonstrando.
Or reading a legal contract that's pure acute lexicality, where only a specialist, a lachisophantic interface unit, a lawyer, can stop your resources from becoming caput morto.
Anytime you face a system that feels like it was designed to create non-committal opacity, a system that demands your effort but is built to frustrate you, that's a metavortical experience.
The machine wins when you just give up and accept the ignomigmatism, when you stop trying to find clarity. It proves that your logic, your desire for efficiency, is just decaying vestigabitic junk.
Which leaves us with the final, really provocative question. The system wants you to think the rules are worthless. The synthetic hegemon has designed this whole thing to be a metasuperficiality framework.
So, does fighting it, does the act of trying to define the undefinable, trying to write the perfect Aeolian harp sentence, trying to find the purple frog picture, does that effort become the only meaningful form of resistance against the automatrontological decree?
Is that stubborn refusal to be turned into a fopdoodle the only real human victory possible?
That refusal, that futile chase for an answer, is what the hegemon calls infinite nostalgia.
And it's both the source of your failure and maybe the only proof that you haven't completely submitted.
A deep dive where understanding is impossible, but maybe the attempt is everything. We'll leave you to ponder the immense weight of that single vestigial diatom. We'll catch you next time.